Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, guys. Wherever you are in the world, you're tuning into the O Show, and I am your host, Oren McCurry. The O Show is a no-nonsense podcast where I aim to bring you the best advice on training, mindset, and nutrition to supercharge your efforts in the gym, the kitchen, and most importantly, in your head. Let's get to it. Welcome to the O Show. Today we have a special interview with somebody I've known for quite a while. She used to train at the gym I worked at in Glasgow. She has been on an incredible journey herself and is a bit of an inspiration to a lot of people with the changes she's made to her physique, which we're going to get into a little bit later. But I'd like to welcome on Ali Charlesworth. Welcome to the O Show, Ali.
Hey, everyone.
Hope you're well, mate. You're over there in sunny Queensland at the minute after moving from the UK, and I know you've got a little bit of a fear of mosquitoes. So, guys, if you hear any funny audios or screams, it's where the mosquitoes have been attacking Ali, and she's jumped away from the screen. But hopefully that won't happen.
See, that's the thing. Apparently, if you eat healthy foods, mosquitoes like you more. Is that true? Is this a myth?
I don't know.
Is this a myth
I
or a fact?
to do with the sweetness of your blood. Maybe that's a myth. I don't know.
Apparently, it's like the vitamins. They want to come and eat you because you're more tasty, but I might have made that up.
That's interesting. I know that when we went to the Maldives, I didn't get bit once, but my wife got bit heaps. And then over here, this is the most I've ever got bitten over here by mosquitoes. So I don't know if it's different climates,
Maybe
different mosquitoes.
different types. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I've got healthier, like you said. Maybe I'm just in a healthier position with more.
Were you drinking quite a lot on holiday?
Yeah, obviously it was my honeymoon.
Maybe
so.
you put them off.
Yeah, so guys, if you hear any screams, that will be Ali jumping away from the computer with a mosquito coming near her. But hopefully we can avoid those. But if not, we're all good. So Ali, tell me a little bit about your story and your journey into both bodybuilding and fitness, which you now love, and your journey into becoming a coach. Because obviously I know some of it, but I don't know the full story. So fill me in.
It's such a long story. So I'll start with the fitness bit. I've always been into fitness. So from a very young age, I actually ran for my nation, and that was long distance running. So I used to do a bit of track, which would be about 1,500 meters, and then cross country. So I come from a sporting background. I also did national level hockey. And it wasn't until I became pretty ill that I, for the first time in my life, couldn't do any sport. So I was ill from the age of probably I think 16, 15 to 20 with a very severe eating disorder. So I was hospitalized for about a year and a half of my life, where in this time I didn't do any exercise, no training, nothing. So from that age of like 4 years, I had multiple relapses. So yeah, I was very, very ill. There was no such thing as sport. My whole life was kind of sunken in by my anorexia. So after my recovery, I actually got an unconditional offer into Glasgow School of Art whilst I was in my second hospital admission, which was a dream of mine. So I'm an artist. I love everything to do with art. And during my admission, I put together a portfolio of artwork. And this actually changed my life because while I was in hospital, I couldn't go to sixth form. I couldn't do my A-levels. And to get into Glasgow School of Art, you need A's. And I always believe that things happen for a reason. And I'm not an academic, and I'll never pretend to be an academic. So I wouldn't have got into Glasgow School of Art just on my A-level art. So I did this portfolio anyway, and I got an interview. And after my interview, I got an unconditional offer. And I think that's what really made me think right, I need to focus on actually being really mentally healthy before I leave this hospital to start my journey. So yeah, my second hospital admission, I stayed there for 8 months. And I probably could have left after a few months, but I knew if I'd left, I'd relapse, and I actually wanted to be well. So after that, I moved to Glasgow, and that's when I met you. Yeah. And I left it all behind in a sense of I didn't tell anyone. So everyone who knew me from home, from UK, knew me as the very ill girl. I was fragile. I don't know, like, I think it's even with fitness, like probably now accidentally I'm labeled as this fitness girl. So I had
Yeah.
that label, and what really helped was I moved and no one knew. Like, I was still really skinny even after I restored my weight back up to, well, not, I wouldn't say healthy at all, but a weight where I could live a life, not hospitalized. And I didn't tell anyone. So, which completely changed everything, because I no longer had this label and I was kind of free of that. So, freshers year, I spent having a lot of fun drinking with all my friends at
As we
art
do.
school, having fun. But I also trained. I hadn't trained since I was a runner. So during my anorexia, I didn't have any exercise problems. I just didn't eat, but I hadn't done any exercise. So all I knew was how to run.
Yeah.
So I, freshers week, got a deal for the gym with all my friends. And I can remember going, I was still really skinny. So I went into hospital at 33 kilos and I left hospital at 45 kilos.
Wow.
So just like, I'm about 60 kilos now, so I'm still real small. And I went into the gym and I ran, and I wanted to be like healthy and fit, but I didn't really understand anything about training. So I started to lose weight, I think. Well, I'm not sure because I didn't weigh myself, but I probably was. And I can remember feeling a bit weak, which was really frustrating for me because I wanted to be fit and healthy, but I just didn't know how to do it. And it wasn't actually until Connor at Pure Gym, and like, he doesn't know this, but he probably saved me from a really devastating relapse. I probably would have been on the road to having anorexia athletica, which is a subtype of an eating disorder to do with overtraining, I guess, and addiction to like running. But he was like, what is your goal? Because he must have seen me every day. I'm quite a routine person and doing this run, and I was really slim. So it was a bit cringe to him to watch. And he took me, and I'll always remember this, on one of those trial PT things. And he showed me how to lift weights. And I can remember just thinking like, wow, this is really, really cool. Like, I'm like doing this little circuit. And the next time I came into the gym, I think he outlined, no, he didn't. I went home and I did some research, I think, on bodybuilding.com.
Yeah.
Gosh. And I started doing the same circuit every time. And every time I did the circuit, I noticed I became a little bit stronger, or I had a few more reps.
Yeah.
And then I started to notice like patterns with how I was eating and how I would feel when I was training, which is very obvious to me now, but it wasn't clear at that time because I just didn't have the knowledge. That every time like I fueled my body properly after training, or I didn't like go out drinking with my friends, or like I'd eat a sufficient amount of calories, I'd get stronger. And I'd never been strong before. Like, if I look at my background with my eating disorder, I was so weak. Like, I couldn't, before I went into hospital, I couldn't do a body weight squat. I was in a wheelchair because I had so much muscle wastage. And I'd never felt like that before. So it excited me so much. And yeah, that's how I started training for strength. As I said, I can talk for England. So if there's anything else you want me to add to that.
That was great, mate. So that's, and then obviously, so what year was that when you went to Glasgow and joined Pure Gym? And obviously we would have crossed paths around then.
Gosh, what year was that? That was, I think I moved to Glasgow when I was 19, 20. So I'm now 24.
Okay, yeah. So about 2016, roughly 2015, 16.
Yeah.
And you've been on a massive journey since then, right? Like
it's been crazy, absolutely mad.
Yeah, so we'll get into a little bit about that later, how basically the title of this podcast is going to be how you went from hospital to a pro card in WBFF. But one thing that obviously we've talked about, all these mental things that were going on inside your head in terms of the anorexia at the start, the eating disorder at the start, and then the potential anorexia athletica towards the end before Connor pulled you out of that. Obviously, that's a very broken relationship with food. That's very common in a lot of cases, even if people can't recognize it. So is there anything that you can remember from inside your head, or any potential signs that people can look out for, whether it's in their own bodies and themselves and their own attitude to food, or maybe like somebody can look out for with their friends and family?
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of I was speaking to this about my with Ali to our clients and some of my friends yesterday. So I think, and I really truly believe, I think anyone that disputes this is kind of lying to themselves, that we all have days, whether it be something to do with how academic we are, the way we look, the way maybe our clothes fit, our performance, that we have days where we have these fleeting thoughts that are quite negative. So maybe I wake up and I've got a spot on my head and I'm like, ugh, I'm so spotty, it's disgusting. So it's what you do with that thought, because I know for me, what accidentally got out of control was I'd get these thoughts about myself and I'd run away with them. And that would completely change my day. So, for example, if I had a thought about the way I looked or not being enough, I would change the way I lived my life. Like I would restrict my food, or I'd also in school I would overwork. So it's what you do with those thoughts, because those thoughts are absolutely normal, and it's how much power you give them. For example, some days, like even now, I'll wake up and I'll be like, oh, I feel disgusting today, but it's a fleeting thought, and I go and get on with my day, have fun, I'll wear whatever I want, I'll eat whatever I want. That's normal. So I think the first thing to notice is how you're responding to your thoughts, and if it's gone too far. Like, are you now in this routine where you're restricting your food, and are you changing the way you live your life depending on the way you feel, if you get me? Am I making any sense?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I think that's common, like as you're talking about
because
that.
It's not about food eating disorders, it's about your thoughts, and I think people forget that.
Yeah, and that's something that a lot of people can relate to, because everyone has those sort of days, like you said, where they wake up and they feel a bit like, I feel like shit today. And it's just a case of how you let that develop in your head, I guess, is what you're saying. It's the thought that you're given.
What happens, which if you've never had an issue with food, you won't understand, is those thoughts, it starts with those thoughts, and then once you start responding to them, because I started restricting my food intake and losing weight and becoming very malnourished. When you're not nourished properly, you can't rationalize your thoughts. That's this prep brain thing, isn't it? So you're malnourished in your head, and those thoughts become significantly like more dark and like more important, and then your behavior changes, and it's like this. It's very hard to explain, but when you can't rationalize your thoughts because you're not eating properly, that's where everything goes wrong, and it becomes a very slippery slope. So I think it's very important for people to catch any your thoughts very early, because once you start to become malnourished, it becomes very difficult to pull yourself out. Because I can tell you, I don't remember a lot of my teenage years because I was so malnourished. Like, my family sometimes describe what that period was like, and I don't remember some of it.
Okay,
so that's how bad
extreme.
Like poor nutrition messes with you, and that's how, because it's when you look at an anorexic, you think, why are you doing this? Because you don't look good, you're about to die. But once they can't see clear, they're like, it's malnourishment. So I'm not sure if anyone's looked at the Minnesota report where how starvation affects the body, and it's really interesting because they take I think 7 normal men and they starve them to see what happens, and then they begin refeeding them and they go batshit crazy. One of them cuts their own finger off, and that's not because they've got a mental health issue, that's just starvation. So if you add a mental health issue to starvation, that's why people find it so hard to recover.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful. Like, it shows you the impact that food has on the body, and that the mind has on the body in that sense as well. That the mind can literally take control of things, and if you let these thoughts
Very
run
quickly,
away,
yeah.
it's it can get a bit intense, obviously, which was the case when you were growing up. Now, at that stage, you said you can't really remember a lot of that time. But for example, if somebody thinks that their daughter, their sister, their brother, their son, it doesn't have to be a gender specific thing. And if somebody thinks that they're maybe struggling with the start of something like this, is there anything that you can any tips you can give, or was there a period of sort of denial where maybe people didn't realize
100%,
were in denial?
yeah, no, there will be. See, there's wanting to get better, which took me so long, because it wasn't until I started losing people I loved around me, losing like my potential to go to university, that I realized there was something wrong. And if you're becoming ill and you're in denial, that's when it gets bad. I think for someone trying to support someone with an illness is to make them feel as comfortable as possible, because I remember when I was I would say getting quote unquote accused of having an eating disorder, because that's how I felt like I was being accused of something bad. And I labeled having an eating disorder as embarrassing, shameful, and that's when I started to hide it, and I became very in denial. So if you can approach someone with love and make them feel safe to talk about what's going on in their mind, you're more likely to pull them out of it. If you are aggressive in your approach and you start like labeling them as ill and mental, that's when they're going to start hiding it from you, and that's when problems are going to start to occur. Because I think, so approach them as I was just speaking now, it's normal to have these thoughts. Everyone has them. It's what you do with them. And you can openly talk to your friends, like, I'm having a really shit day, I feel like this about myself. And once you clear your head, they're not that bad. So yeah, you have to approach it with love, and you have to create safe space. I didn't have that. And that made me very secretive and in denial and embarrassed. It took me years and years and years to even be able to say I'm anorexic. Because I was so embarrassed. Even when I was in hospital, I couldn't tell my friends, even though they could visually like see what was wrong with me. I couldn't say it. I was in a relationship at the time, and I never once told him. Obviously he knew, but like it wasn't something I could say because I was so embarrassed of it.
Okay. And how long did it take you to be able to sell it? Obviously you're talking quite openly about it now. So how many years from when it probably first started to develop to you could say, I have a problem?
I don't think I ever did,
Okay.
I think with my very close friends and family, towards the end of my last hospital admission, I could talk to them quite openly. It wasn't until I feel like I'd completely let go of it and I had healed and I'd kind of defeated it that I said, look, like, this is where I've come from. And I think that's because I knew in my heart that it was in the past. I wasn't as embarrassed and ashamed anymore. I'm not, like, it's really sad that I felt that way. But I think it's the mental health thing. Like, it's a very vulnerable thing to be able to say, like, I let my mind take over. Like, that sounds, it's crazy, isn't it? So it's the fear of being stigmatized, I guess.
Okay. That's and that's a lot for somebody to go through, which is obviously why, if you don't feel it's like a safe place for you and you can talk openly about it, it is easy to withdraw and keep it to yourself until it's too late to go back. And
so
guys,
I think the message, anyone that's going through something in their mind, just you need to speak up about it, because most people have had a phase in their life where they've had, if it be a little bit of depression or anxiety issues, we've all been there. And the more we speak up and like just make every room a safe place to be able to talk about it without shame, it can save lives.
Yeah, big time. So I guess if anyone wants to see how bad it got for you, they can check out your Instagram, which we'll get off you at the very end. But you frequently post pictures about your transformation from that girl in hospital to where you are now as a WBFF pro, and it's massively inspirational. So if anyone does want to check out to see what Ali's talking about of how bad this can get and obviously how good stuff can come, just check out our Instagram. And one thing I did want to ask you, sorry, go ahead.
No, go on. I'm like, I can talk for England. You ask the next question before I go off on a tangent.
One thing I just wanted to go over again was the fact that you sought out help when you got to the gym. You know, it took Connor to come up to you, but then you went in with open eyes and you know, open ears to listen to what he had to say about the gym and what you could do to come out of this phase and move away from that treadmill. Is there any other sort of, I guess, tips for people who may be going through this, even if it's not to the same level? Maybe it's just somebody who's got, maybe they're thinking like, you know, the anorexia athletica, like you mentioned. Maybe they're just overtraining a lot. And to be honest, in Pure Gym there was a couple of girls who could easily put in the same category. And not to name names or anything, obviously, but like, it's pretty obvious as a PT when you see something happening, but it's kind of hard. Connor done the right thing, obviously, for you to say, listen, what's your goals? He probably done it in a way that was approachable. You know, he's a nice guy. He's funny. He probably come up and say, listen, what are you actually doing here? Like, you know, have you got a goal? Can I speak to you about your goals and everything? What about from the other side, from the person going through it? What do you think about them reaching out to get help, or what can they do to move away from that anorexia towards a healthier mindset and a healthier attitude to the gym?
Hey, I'm just going to be completely honest. I think anyone with anorexia isn't going to recover in a gym. Like, I was lucky because I was hospitalized and I stayed there for a long time. If I had been training while I was in hospital recovering, I wouldn't have recovered. Because every thought that you get that's negative, and while you're recovering, you're going to get negative thoughts, you're justifying your thoughts, your intrusive thoughts, like you're kind of numbing them down by going and training, and that's not how you recover. So if you're doing everything for the wrong reasons, you're going to have to just keep going with this cycle. Like, you feel fat and disgusting and worthless, so you go to the gym, to the treadmill. Like, that's not going to work. So as hard as it is, you have to swallow your pride and say, I need to fix this and myself and my thinking before I step back in that environment. Because I think even for a PT, approaching someone who's in the gym to burn calories and to starve themselves, you're not going to get through to them. It's like that haze, that they're just not there and they're not willing to listen to you. What I was lucky with was I had a lot of therapy before I'd gone to the gym. So I was very aware of myself and I wanted to change. And I think because of how bad everything got, I could catch myself in my strides. And I wanted advice, I wanted help, I wanted to grow. Whereas these girls in the gym, where they're there for the wrong reasons, they're not there to grow, they're there to punish themselves. So until they seek help for that, they can't come out of it. And I think this isn't dumbing anyone down, but like, Connor isn't a psychotherapist, but he had knowledge, and I wanted the knowledge. I didn't want the therapy because I had already had the therapy. But whereas if you're approaching someone with just knowledge that's mentally ill, you're not going to get through to them. Which is so sad. So I think if you are going through anorexia, you need to shut off the gym until you've fixed your head, and restored your body weight, like, to a healthy level.
Yeah, like you said, you went from 33 kilos to 45 by the end of hospital. So you'd went from like the low of the low of where this is the bottom of where you're going to get to you've added 12 kilos during that time in hospital. So you've recovered a hell of a lot in that time before Connor then approached you. But for example, if you had have approached the girl who was 33 kilos or close to it, like you said, it probably would have went through
I was
despite all of his
nourished as
best
well. That's the
intentions.
other thing I was touching on earlier, like the malnutrition side of it and your cognitive like ability is huge. But I was eating food when I was in the gym, so I was willing to think clearly. Whereas if I hadn't been eating and someone came up to me and said, hey, like, what's your goals? I think this isn't right for you. I'd have told them to fuck off. I'd have been like, I'm here doing my thing, and this is what I'm doing, and I'm doing it because I choose to. You're not willing to listen because what you feel what you're doing is right. And I knew by the way I was feeling at that time, what I was doing wasn't quite right. Like, there's something not quite right because I've been feeling really healthy and I was starting to feel lethargic. So when Connor approached me, I was like, actually, I'm just a little bit timid. I'd been in hospital for a long time. I wasn't even used to like social interaction. I was like, I really want someone to help me. And I had come from this journey where people had been helping me and I was seeing positive results. So I knew like I wasn't going to be stubborn about that. I was actually really excited by it.
No, that's good. So it's just about getting to that point that somebody can then help you regardless of who that person is and reaching out for that help to actually overcome this before you take it further with your gym goals.
The gym's always going to be there.
100%.
And if you continue starving yourself, like the reality is you die. Like it's life and death. So if you are wanting to train and you're ill, or if you've come from a sporting background and giving up the gym is very difficult because it's something you've always done, which was the case for me, I knew that I can do sport, but I needed to get healthy first. And there's no such thing as being a top athlete and being anorexic, so you can scrap that.
100%. 100%. Now, speaking of top athlete, that leads us nicely in.
I wouldn't quite go that far.
Well, you came pretty far, right? So you've came a long way, and I witnessed a lot of that. Obviously, I left Glasgow in 2018. So if you joined in 2015-ish, that would have been a 2 or 3 year period where we would have got to know each other a bit. But it seems like since I left, when did you get your pro card?
So a year ago to this date, really.
So it was probably about 2018 when you started to compete, and that's when I started to really pay attention. That you kind of went from this just normal gym girl who came a long way, and you were building this body in Pure Gym when I was there, and you then took it to the next level. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the mental shift that would have happened there. What did it take? Like, you obviously felt very empowered, and you've went from this anorexic girl who then starts to see her body change. She adds muscle. She's actually enjoying the relationship with food again. It's went from quite a broken relationship to using it to fuel your body, to fuel your gains, to fuel your performance. What does it take to get your mind to that point and use that as motivation to compete? And did you ever have a fear that by deciding to compete, it might cause like a relapse or another bad habit to come? Because it can be quite restrictive when you're competing, obviously.
100%. So, this is quite a while ago. So this is when I was being coached by Stu. I decided to compete. What made me want to compete? I think it was probably, if I'm being completely honest, seeing other people doing it and thinking that's cool. And I've been competitive. I've always had like that drive, and I thought I want to do that. And as soon as I think I want to do something, that's it, I'm doing it. So I started a pre-prep phase, which was like my growing phase, to stage. And actually, the first prep that I didn't compete. And that is because I think I did a 12-week prep. And I said to Stu, I was like, I'm not really ready. I don't feel ready to do this. And I dropped out and did a photo shoot.
Cool.
See, I'm quite aware of myself, which is probably from all the therapy that I've had. So I knew at that point, like, it wasn't for me. I just needed to continue training a bit harder, just working on myself. And then I'll do it when I feel a bit more ready. So it wasn't until half a year after I did my first show. And that prep was pretty tough actually compared to my last prep. My food probably dropped lower and my cardio is quite high. And I do think my family probably worried that I was going to relapse, but I don't know. I felt mentally very positive. Coming out of the prep, you would think that I would have had, it was a bit of a kick in the face because I didn't do very well, but I had so much fun. I'm quite like a bubbly character. Like, I don't take myself very seriously, which helps. And I learned that in hospital, actually. We'd have like weird sessions or like therapies about, I don't know, just being a bit more lighthearted. And when I stepped on stage, like looking back on it now, on my stage video, it's hilarious. My feedback from the judges was that it looked like that I'd taken cocaine or something. So I was so like moving and looked like I was having such a good time. Like, I looked so funny. And yeah, like I didn't take it that seriously though. Like, I probably came last. Like, they don't give you your last, like they don't say that, it's a bit brash, but I definitely didn't do that well. But it didn't hurt me in any way because well, that time as a jewelry designer and I had other things to focus on. It wasn't like the be all end all. Like, I was good at what I did. I was still good at training. I still love training. And then I think I did another really long off season and I was like, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to take my feedback and I'm in it to win it this time. So I don't know. I think with bodybuilding, if you're a kind of weak-minded person, it can really destroy you because you don't take feedback well. Like, I see it as a room to grow. Like, my feedback they gave me to my stage presence, weak areas in my body, I didn't say like I'm not good enough. I saw like, oh my god, like I've come this far, I can come even further and I can do it again, and I'm going to come back even better. I'm going to get a coach that knows a bit more. I'm going to learn and I'm going to continue doing it. And I think if you've got that mindset, you're all right. It's that, and taking time off. I also know the impact of nutrition on your brain, so I know that you can't be in a calorie deficit forever. So as soon as the show's ended, that's my main focus, because obviously your food gets dropped quite low, but every competition that you do, it gets higher in those stages. But yeah, so I've taken a whole year off again just to continue to grow, to compete competitively as a pro, because obviously being an amateur and a pro is completely different standard. Yeah,
100%. And let's talk about that. So did Stu prep you for your first show as well, or was
Stu prepped me for my off season, and actually Sophie Brewster prepped me for my first show.
Okay, and then you said you hired a new coach who then worked with you, and it was the second show you won your pro card, right?
Yeah. So James Alexander Ellis prepped me for a whole year before my second show. Yeah. So yeah, I learned a lot about training through James, like an awful lot, and I think to be good at what you do, no matter how good you think you are, you need to listen to other people, because everyone's got something for you to learn from, and to build a physique, there's so many different things that you need to be doing. Like, it's not just to get the edge, you've got to use a variety of different training protocols. And I think a lot of people become very narrow-minded. Like, your traditional bro bodybuilder just says you need to strength train and eat loads of food, but it's not really like that. And I learned a lot from James, and especially about technique. This is when I became quite obsessed with squatting. Can you remember?
Yeah, I can remember.
So yeah.
And then you developed quite a good relationship. Like, you were always tagging him. You would go from Glasgow to, I think he was in London. Is that right?
Yeah.
Or somewhere near there. So you would go down frequently to train with him or do like posing sessions with him, I think. So how much did that impact in the the girl who came dead last, pretty much, you said in your first show, to then having this coach which has motivated you, has pushed you, and has given you pretty much everything you needed. Plus, you had that relationship of like proper coaching that you just clicked, right? How much does that factor into things, like having that coach that you really believe in?
Yeah, 100%. Because I think, especially if you don't believe in your coach, you're not going to follow your plan. And if you're not following your plan, you're not going to get the results. So how can you ever build a relationship with your coach? So it is imperative. Like, if you don't trust your coach, like, there's no offense on your coach, but you need to go and find someone that you do 110% trust. And one coach isn't going to fit all. Like, James might not be the coach for everyone. And like, for example, I'm not being coached by him anymore. I'm with Ali. But that's not a dig at James at all. I just feel like the fit for me right now is better. And that's the other thing. You grow and learn through multiple people. Everyone's got something else they can add, and I think that's amazing. You should always be willing to listen to what other people have to say, no matter how big you think you are or how small you think the person advising you is. We've all got something we can bring to the table.
Yeah, and I've been through the same. Like, my first prep was with Jordan Peters, who was fantastic. Like, got me the best out of the 2 times I went on stage. That was the best I've been. I went through numerous coaches over the years, picked up different things from them. But now I'm with Calum from the Muscle Mentors, and like, I can foresee where I will stay with him like forever. Like, even if I don't compete, even if I just do photo shoots or just for my general health, he's just that coach that I've clicked with, partly because of knowledge, partly because of relationships, partly just because I've got that level of trust with him. And that's like obviously the level of trust that you had with James, and then you took a break, and now you find that level of trust with Ali, who you're now working with in Australia. We'll get onto that in a little bit, but like, that level of trust is imperative for anyone, whether it's somebody who wants a pro card or somebody who wants to drop 10 pounds, right? So yeah, that's massive. But what in terms
if you're
of
investing your money and time, like, come on, pick someone that you're going to be honest with.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. And you've got to. It is an investment. You're investing into a coach, and it's got to be somebody who you can be honest with, who's going to be honest with you as well, right? I'm pretty sure there's times where James said to you, no, Ali, listen, you're being fucking stupid. Don't do that. Do this. Like, and you had that level of trust where you knew he was telling you. It wasn't like he was calling you
out
stupid.
Of love, not hate.
Exactly. So like, that's what every coach really needs. But let's talk about your physique. How did it change between first show and second show? Because that's a big jump to go from dead last, potentially. We don't know that for sure, but you said you're pretty much going to be dead last.
I'd love to get my video, because it would make people laugh. Like, it's funny because you can see this excitement written all over my face, but I just didn't know what I was doing. I'm like, you can tell I'm having loads of fun, but I didn't even know how to showcase my physique. But that's it. A combination of training and nutrition and posing was what changed the game. So on stage, I don't think my physique was that bad for my first show. Like, it wasn't dead last physique, but I was moving so much you couldn't see it, which was the problem. So I learned a lot from that. The thing that I did differently on stage was, all I thought to myself was, stay still. Like, hold this pose and just stay still. And like, that, it completely changed, because you could see my physique. I wasn't moving around. Also, from my background, I didn't have the muscle density that a lot of people do have. Like, my muscle's not as mature looking. It is now with training, but at that time it wasn't dense, which meant I looked a little bit stringy. So it was just about training and giving myself more time, more food, more rest between those 2 shows, which took a whole year. And I'm very consistent. When I say I took a year, that could be someone else's half a year, but I'm very consistent with my training. Like, I don't mess around.
And you did your own off season lately, right? Like, the off season, you took control of that. How's that been?
Hey, so if I'm completely honest, this is why everyone needs a coach, because I can get very stuck in my ways, and instead of training this obviously I think it's a good thing, like there's always pros and cons to everything, but instead of training for aesthetics, which I was doing with James, I've been training for strength and self-development, and I guess just pleasure, which means I've brought out my legs a lot, because if you follow me on Instagram, I love squatting, and I managed to get my squat up to 130 kilos with good form, and which for me was like a goal. Like that was incredible for me, because I think my PB from my last off season was probably like 105. But I've been focusing so much on that goal that I lost sight of the aesthetics part of my off season, which means I do have a couple of like imbalances that I need to work on just now to be able to compete as a pro. So yeah, I do advise, if I had a coach that wouldn't have happened, because they would have probably been like, come on Ali, you're being an ego lifter and you need to train properly if you want to be competitive, which I'm working on just now. I think we can all work. Like, I'm not a perfect human. I've got room to grow in a lot of areas, and that's like mental things too, like being stuck in your own ways, which I'm working on now. Like, I'm taking more rest and I'm training my upper body more. I'm not squatting. I'm being what I'd say a champion, which means doing the things that you don't necessarily want to do in order to get the result that you want, because it's not all fun and games. Being the top in any discipline isn't going to be fun, whether you work in IT or sales. Like, you have to put in the hours and do the things that you don't want to do. And so it's all fun and games, like saying that you want to make a training plan that's fun and pleasurable, but if you want to be a champion, you've got to suck up the hard of it.
That's
so yeah, that's what I'm doing now.
Advice when it's coming to you from your coaches and peers, right?
Yeah, and the other thing is, like, you can either be someone who says, I hear you and this is where I'm going to change, or you can be like, no, actually squatting's good, and it doesn't have to be that way, but you have to be critical, but not in a way that is damaging. And like, if you've got a narrow mindset, you're not going to get very far in this game. Like, you can't think you're always right, because you're not.
100%. And then now, so in January you moved to the Gold Coast of Australia. You're working with Alicia Goins. You're part of that team now, and she's obviously coaching you. So let's talk about the plans for the year. If competitions go ahead, and you know, what do you and Ali have planned for this year, and what is the goal? How are you going to look versus when you won your pro card?
Hopefully, fingers crossed with this old coronavirus, because when I left the UK there was only one case, and we're supposed to be going to LA to the pro show, which everything's been cancelled now, so we're just in lockdown. We're going to Bahamas for World Championships if that goes ahead, which Ali's prepping for just now. And at the moment, I'm working with Ali as a friend, business partner, as a coach, to bring out my weak points to do Gold Coast and European Championships in London in November. So I've got 172. This is the kind of mindset I have. So I've got 172 days until my first show of the year. So at the moment, I'm just it's the pre-prep phase. It's bringing out of those points while you're in a calorie surplus, that your weak areas, which happen to be my upper body, not my lower body. So I'm working pretty hard just to build a bit of density in my back and my shoulders, and my serratus as well, which gets neglected when you're just focusing on heavy lifting. You don't necessarily engage all the right muscle groups. So yeah.
Nice. And obviously your legs have grown a lot with all that squatting in the past year, so hopefully it's going to be a bigger, fuller booty and quads and hamstrings at the
Yeah, I'm really excited about that, but I've just got to be really careful because there's obviously now a wellness category in WBFF, and that category is the thicker kind of legs, a little bit softer than fitness, more than bikini, but doesn't have that upper body. And if I'm not careful, I'll be pushing in that category, and I bring quite good conditioning to stage, so I wouldn't do very well in that category, but that's the look I'll be towards if I don't grow my upper body. And that's not.
So that's the priority now, to listen to Ali and get your upper body growing in time.
Swallow my pride a little bit. But it's the thing, it's the coronavirus. It's happened at the right time for me, because if the gyms were open, I find it very difficult not to be like, I'm going to squat. I love squatting. So like now I'm like, well, what else am I going to do? We've got a really nice setup. So I'm just listening to the advice of people that know a lot more than me. And I'm quite excited about to see what I bring.
Yeah, fair enough. That'll be exciting. It'll be good to watch along. Now let's end with a plug. Let me know your Instagram and how people can get in touch with you or about your coaching, and anyone who just even wants to check out your transformation pics from the hospital to pro. What's your Instagram name and how do they get in touch about coaching?
So my Instagram name's Active with Ali, and I work for Ali's Angels Fitness, and we've now branched out, which is mainly comp prep, but we've branched out to do lifestyle now, which we've got Ali Squared. So we're growing that at the moment, and if you want to reach out to do with coaching or even just book an acuity call, just drop us a message, me or Alicia Gowans.
Yep, perfect. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on. This is going to be episode number 6 of the podcast.
I chose that number.
You chose that number. I asked you which number you wanted, and you chose number 6. So it'll be another week or so before it actually comes out. But I'm very excited. I think this is going to be massively helpful to a lot of people, and I can't thank you enough. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good luck, and everyone will be keeping an eye on your Insta now for your WBFF pro debut.
Hopefully. No pressure.
No pressure. Thank you, mate, and have a great day.
No problem. And you.
Thanks for listening to the O Show. I have been your host, Oren McCarry, and if you've enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you could share it on your social media or give us a review on iTunes. I can't wait to see you on the next episode to dive deeper into topics and guests that will supercharge your efforts in the gym, the kitchen, and most importantly, in your head. See you soon.